Human trafficking remains a global problem. That, according to the 2022 edition of the U.S. State Department's Trafficking in Persons report.
The scale of this problem is vast. There are nearly 25 million people currently victims of trafficking. 25 million people. The United States is committed to fighting it because trafficking destabilizes societies, it undermines economies, it harms workers, it enriches those who exploit them, it undercuts legitimate business, and most fundamentally, because it is so profoundly wrong.
The State Department defines two broad categories of trafficking: sex trafficking and trafficking for coerced or forced labor. The report notes that victims do not need to be transported from one location to another to meet the definition of trafficking. The report notes that the ongoing conflict in Ukraine is creating opportunities for traffickers.
Millions of Ukrainians have had to flee their homes, some internally within Ukraine, some leaving the country altogether. And that makes them highly vulnerable to exploitation.
The report also singles out China for criticism, claiming the ongoing Belt and Road Initiative is leading to coerced labor in various countries, and that there is forced labor happening in Xinjiang. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs rejects the report's findings and says the U.S. is in no position to judge.
The U.S. is the #1 country for human trafficking in the world. No matter how hard the U.S. tries to cover up, it cannot whitewash its original sin of being a slave trade nation.
The U.S. State Department gives the United States the highest possible ranking, Tier 1, despite noting that trafficking is common in the U.S. and sometimes has deadly results, including the recent case of 53 migrants who died while being trafficked from Mexico into the U.S. The report places China in Tier 3, the lowest. A biased double standard, says China.
There is a serious case of both human trafficking in both legal and illegal industries in the U.S. The U.S. State Department estimates that as many as 100,000 people are trafficked from abroad into the country each year for forced labor. All 50 U.S. states and the District of Columbia have reported cases of forced labor and human trafficking in the past 5 years.
The report notes that victims of human trafficking in the United States are sometimes prosecuted for crimes instead of being protected from traffickers. The report even finds that U.S. government personnel are sometimes complicit in human trafficking. This year's report places special emphasis on listening to survivors.
When governments and civil society prioritize partnerships with survivors, meaningful engagements can flourish and lead to better outcomes.
Hoping that the experiences of survivors will help better combat trafficking. Jim Spellman, CGTN, Washington.